one approach to multicollinearity, oftentimes, not oftentimes, for a while it was very popular to look at things like property values in communities. And economists were interested in trying to explain property values in communities. And so they would have property values on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side they would have different community attributes. And so they might have on the right-hand side miles of roadway, the geographic size of the community, and blah, blah, blah. Well, there are a whole bunch of things there that are all measuring essentially the same thing. Miles of roadway is going to be very highly correlated with the number of square miles in the community. And there might be 3 or 4 other measures that convey essentially the same information. And then you might also have some data on the number of firefighters and the number of firemen, or number of policemen rather, and the number of municipal employees and some other things, other manpower variables. And so those are all going to be very highly correlated. So the idea behind principal components is to collapse all those independent variables into a much smaller set. And the way it's done is to find a set of characteristic vectors, some subset of the characteristic vectors of XX transpose, with n by n, find some subset of the characteristic vectors that explains as much variance in X as possible. And so you can set it up so that, for example, your first principal component might correspond to the manpower variable. The second principal component might correspond to the infrastructure variables, and so on and so forth. Have you set it up? I'll tell you the same thing now I told you before. You go and you read the SAS manual, and you read the seminal article that I gave you. What's the purpose of this course, just out of curiosity? Test hypothesis, right. And what's the purpose of having you write a research paper? Well, besides that, the broader principle. Your exam, your homework is do this, do this, do this, do this. Your exams are do this, do this, do this, do this. And all of a sudden you have a research paper where you've got to identify the question. You've got to take the initiative to say how I'm going to answer this question, and you have to demonstrate the initiative to show that you learned maybe some techniques we didn't have time to talk about that can be used in answering that question. So this is your project, not mine. You pick the topic, you pick the data, you pick the hypotheses that you thought were worth testing. And so I'm interested in your initiative and your creativity. And I said along the way that I'm not expecting a journal quality article out of you. I want some demonstration that you showed some initiative, you showed some creativity, and some problem solving ability. And you used some statistics, econometrics. Because your employers, for those of you who are bailing out on me with this MSME program, your employers are going to expect you to show creativity, initiative, and problem-solving skills without having to be told, do this, do this, do this, do this. They're going to say, I think this area is a problem. Come back in a week with the answer. And don't darken my doorstep in between. I think that's how the real world works.